The Sig Sauer P320 is one of the most innovative pistols available today, chosen as the official sidearm of all branches of the U.S. military for its extreme reliability, unprecedented accuracy, and unmatched durability. In this video, we'll explore the various safety features that make the P320 one of the safest and most dependable pistols in the world. The firing mechanism of the Sig Sauer P320 pistol has several safety features that prevent the pistol from firing unless the trigger is pressed. These are the 5 individual actions which must happen before a P320 can discharge. The trigger must first be pressed to the rear, moving the trigger bar forward. The captive safety lever then rotates upward. The striker safety lock will then rotate upward. The sear rotates downward. And finally, the striker pin is released. All 5 of these independent actions must happen before the P320 will discharge. Here we see all 5 actions in sequence. Step 1. The trigger, shown in red, is pressed to the rear, moving the trigger bar, shown in blue, forward. Step 2. The forward movement of the trigger bar, shown in blue, rotates the captive safety lever, shown in red, upward. Step 3. Rotation of the captive safety lever, shown in red, rotates the striker safety lock, shown in green, upward. Step 4. As we rotate the view of the pistol to the left side, we see that forward movement of the trigger bar, shown in blue, will rotate the sear downward. Step 5. The last action that occurs is the striker pin is released as a result of the sear rotating downward. We will now take a look at each of these components and their function individually, starting with the captive safety lever. The movement of the captive safety lever, shown in red, is controlled by the trigger bar. When the trigger is pressed to the rear, the trigger bar is pulled forward, rotating the captive safety lever upward, disengaging the striker safety lock. This releases the striker pin, allowing it to strike the chambered cartridge. Captive safety lever rotation is limited by the trigger bar. Only when the trigger is pressed will the trigger bar move forward, allowing the safety lever to rotate, disengaging the striker safety lock. Striker safety lock operation. When the trigger is pressed to the rear, it causes the captive safety lever to rotate upward, disengaging the striker safety lock, shown in green. Sear. Primary sear notch. As the slide travels forward, the sear is held in its upwardmost position by the 2 sear springs. The striker pin hook contacts the sear and continues forward movement until the face of the striker pin hook engages the face of the primary sear notch. The hook of the striker pin is held in the primary sear notch. The striker pin is now under spring pressure. When the trigger is pressed to the rear, the trigger bar moves forward, rotating the captive safety lever upward, disengaging the striker safety lock, and rotating the sear downward out of contact with the striker pin. The striker pin is released to strike the chambered cartridge. When the trigger is pressed to the rear, the trigger bar is pulled forward, rotating the sear downward, releasing the striker pin. Upward travel of the sear is determined by the striker pin hook. Therefore, full engagement of the primary sear notch always exists. Sear. Secondary sear notch. The secondary sear notch is an added safety feature designed to capture the striker pin hook in the unlikely event of sear and striker separation without the trigger being pressed. Overriding secondary sear notch. In the unlikely event that the secondary sear notch fails to capture the striker pin, the striker safety lock will stop forward movement of the striker pin. Disconnector safety mechanism. When the slide moves rearward out of battery, the disconnector, shown in yellow, is pushed downward, separating the trigger bar from sear engagement. Pressing the trigger in this out-of-battery condition will not release the striker pin. As we rotate the image to the left side, you can clearly see that once the disconnector is pushed down, the trigger bar no longer has contact with the sear, but still has engagement with the captive safety lever. Pressing the trigger rearward in this condition will still move the captive safety lever, however the sear will not move. Let's review these 5 critical steps again. Trigger must first be pressed to the rear, moving the trigger bar forward. The captive safety lever then rotates upward. The striker's safety lock will then rotate upward. The sear rotates downward. And finally, the striker pin is released. Each of these 5 independent actions must happen before the P320 can discharge. They have been designed to ensure the P320 is as safe as it is innovative.